It always starts with you singing, Dale. Good evening, everyone. We are back and we're kickstarting a new retrospective today. So this was an idea that we're actually kicking around for quite a while. I think sort of like midway through the Disney retrospective that we did, I was already sort of thinking ahead to what we could do after that. And I really liked that we kept it in the world of animation. And to me, there was like a big like series of films, like an absolute giant in the animation genre, which is Don Bluth, and has produced some of the most sort of like near and dear to my heart films that really reinforced my sort of growing up, and some actually really complex and mature themes that have sort of lasted throughout my life, really. And then as we were going through the Disney retrospective and we were reading behind the scenes of stuff, there is actually a really strong link between Don Bluth and Disney, purely for the fact that he was an ex-Disney employee and he worked there for a short while. I think his first project was Sleeping Beauty. He left, he came back for Robin Hood, and then I think he retired midway through Fox and the Hound to sort of chart his own course and actually have some films that rival Disney themselves. So as we were kind of winding down on the Disney stuff, I pitched to you and I was like, do you fancy talking about some Don Bluth afterwards? And I think some of our commenters as well were saying that they'd like to see us talk about some of these films. So that's kind of the intro. This is the retrospective that we're kickstarting now. So I think there's like 12-ish movies. So we're going to be here a while. I actually don't know how many of these films you've already seen. I think I may have seen more than you, perhaps, of some of them. You've seen stuff like The Land Before Time, right?
I've never heard of Land Before Time.
What about like An American Tail, Anastasia? Like, have you seen?
I've seen Anastasia too many times. No, Anastasia is one I have seen a few times. I had an ex-girlfriend that was obsessed with it, so I watched it a lot, and it's kind of like, it's good, but it's one of those when I know when I go back to it, I'm going to be like, this again, like, you know what I mean? Because I've seen it a lot, kind of like Big Hero 6 in a way. But yeah, I've seen a few. American Whatchamajig, what's it called?
American Tail.
Yeah, that was a long time ago though. I'm not. It's going to be like brand new again. But yeah, Land Before Time would be nice. Get to talk about Ducky.
Yes, we do. for real this time. I mean, there's some incredible titles in his filmography, which I'm really looking forward to. Some really underappreciated ones as well. There's some titles that have since developed a bit of a cult following, but it's a little bit inconsistent as well. I think that Don Bluth's works kind of peaked in the 80s, maybe. And then there was a slight strange
like Van Halen
throughout the 90s. Yay, it's back. I was going to say, so in the Disney retrospective, for anyone who's just joining us, you had this thing where you were determined to have a Van Halen reference in every single one of our videos. And for 64 videos, you managed it. Are we sticking with the Van Halen theme for this one?
I think there's got to be a different theme in there.
I mean, you've kind of started it now with Van Halen, so we might have to do that.
Because Van Halen wasn't a thing for every other video, there needs to be a different theme for this. Because otherwise it would have to be because imagine that though. It was a thing for every video ever. That would be fun.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what reference comes up as we talk.
I don't know. I'm thinking of referencing Teen Wolf.
Okay. Okay.
Why not?
It's a great fucking movie though. Michael J. Fox. Hell yeah.
Good soundtrack. Yeah. I know. Shame he's got Parkinson's.
Oh, there we go. Starting it on a downer. Love it. Absolutely love it. So yeah, I mean, I'm really looking forward to jumping into this retrospective. I think it's going to be a really cool one to do. There's actually some films in his filmography which I still haven't seen. So there will be.
I just thought of something.
Go on.
It relates to Parkinson's. Because you know how when you got Parkinson's, you know, you shake.
Yeah.
I genuinely did this once. So this was when I was like working like in a shop, and I was serving these two old people, and this dude, and he was with his missus, and she had Parkinson's, so she was doing that constantly, right? I didn't do this on purpose. I kid you, I did not do this on purpose. But I said something, and I just saw her doing that over and over again. I went, "Oh, she's agreeing with me," and I didn't even think at all anything. And then it was only afterwards I was like, hang on, I feel like that's an illness.
At least you made light of it, you know.
I
mean, if you've got it, you know, it's the typical British sense, you know, just you got to soldier on, make a joke out of it. And
I don't think she noticed. I don't think she noticed anything, to be fair, but
Oh
You
no.
know?
Oh no. Anyway, bringing it back to Don Bluth and the retrospective that we're talking about. Yeah. So today's video, we're covering two. We're covering two short films that he did, which sort of kickstarted his not animation career as per se, but in terms of him being that independent creator and producing all the prolific films that he did. The first of which was produced by Disney whilst he was still working for them. So I'm just going to go a little bit into his history and sort of how he started with the Disney company. So this is sort of like an offshoot from our previous retrospective that he did. So Don Bluth kind of entered the scene. He was an assistant on Sleeping Beauty. So that was like 1955. He was hired by the company. And 2 years later, he left. And apparently he called it, quote, kind of boring. Describing his time at Disney. But that didn't stop him because he came back. So in 1971, he returned to Disney as an animation trainee. He was one of the... I don't know if you remember when we were talking about the Disney retrospective, but there was the senior animators that were there from the beginning called the 9 Old Men. And by this point, a lot of them were dead or retired. So they were trying to draft like a lot of newbies in, a lot of fresh talent into the company because they knew that the animated feature was still very profitable and still very marketable. So Don Bluth was one of the ones that was hired by the company back into the fold. And his first project was Robin Hood. Apparently he animated some sequence, Robin Hood stealing gold from Prince John, rescuing the infant rabbit, and the romance scene with Maid Marian near the waterfall. He animated Rabbit in Winnie the Pooh, The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. And he was also an animator on The Rescuers and Pete's Dragon as well. And it was sort of midway through Fox and the Hound where he jumped ship, where he became a little bit disenchanted with Disney as a company and the direction they were going, and chose to chart his own course. So this film that we're talking about first, the small one, I'd never seen before. So this was actually a real treat. The two films that we're talking today, I hadn't seen before for this point. And this was the one that was produced right before Pete's Dragon. And apparently, I think he was quoted as saying that he made this film in order to get the crew busy until Pete's Dragon.
I was not a big fan of Pete's Dragon.
No, it was. I think I've seen that film. I actually don't know if I've ever seen it beginning to end.
I've seen it a few times. I'm not.
Yeah.
I saw it a few times because my parents bought it for me when I was a kid, but I was never really a big fan.
It was sort of part of that collection for me of the live action / animated ones. Like Mary Poppins was probably the best out of all of them, and was the most popular. Then you had like Bedknobs and Broomsticks, So Dear to My Heart, and Pete's Dragon, and they were kind of all grouped together for me. And I think I've only watched bits of it. I remember a song, like I think like the little kid sings a song to the dragon. The dragon's like boom boom boom, and like I don't know. There's bits of it I thought were kind of charming.
Did they remake it as well?
Oh God, you're right. They did. Yeah, I completely forgot about that. Yeah, that was like is it like 2016 or something? I think.
Yeah, it's like silly.
We've already got a comment. JDC says, "Hey guys, it's amazing that Bluth himself was influenced by Disney in their prime, but if I was born in the late 1930s, sorry, I've got something on my screen, I would have preferred to see Technicolor films in that black and white ocean." Yeah, he's definitely... Well, we can see in these first two films, definitely, well, Banjo the Woodpile Cat, there's a lot of inspiration there from other Disney films, which we'll get into. So, yeah, the small one. I didn't know anything about this one before going into it, so I was completely cold into this one. What were your thoughts going into this one then? Because it's quite a short, it's like 20 minutes, isn't it? 20-something minutes?
Yeah, 26, I want to say.
Something like that. I watched it on YouTube. It's available to watch on YouTube. That's where I watched it.
I out of the two, that's the one I preferred. I thought it was more wholesome. I thought it was the second one was quite wacky, which is great, but this one had just like more heart. It had more like, when obviously he was going to be, sold and all that sort of stuff. It was there was emotion to it. I think there was a lot of it flowed really, really well, and I think it was a nice short story because it didn't feel rushed. It didn't feel like it dragged. It felt exactly as it should be. It was a nice. The pacing was great. I thought the animation was absolutely incredible. I really like that style. It's really hard to pick a flaw with it. To be fair, it was great. Yeah, the music was it was weird. At first I wasn't sure which one I preferred the music to, but I would have to choose this one. I do. Yeah, the music is great.
I was shocked to actually read that Don Bluth, well, is a musician, a music writer. He penned two of the three songs from the small one, and he also did the music for Banjo the Woodpile Cat as well. So talented songwriter as well. I thought the music was really
I
nice, kind of
take
wholesome.
issue with Banjo as well because every time I say it, I think Banjo and Kazooie. Every time,
Yeah, yeah.
can't not.
The small one, yeah, no, I thought it was quite wholesome. Very, very Disney. I think that Banjo, unsurprisingly, is more Don Bluth because that was his side project. That was all him, basically. And I do think out of the two, we see more Bluth-isms in Banjo the Woodpile Cat. This is still very much in the framework of Disney and sort of the things that they were putting out at the time. And I actually think that Banjo sort of exemplifies Bluth's animation style a lot more than this one does. What I love about Bluth's animation, and we'll see this as we go through, well, I mean, it's trite to say just the animation in general, but I love the amount of personality and expression he gets through in his characters, whether they be human or whether they be animal. And what he's able to do is he's still able to bring a level of realism to the animal. It kind of moves the way you would expect the given animal to move and has the right proportions and everything. But they have this very expressive or very human-like quality to their expression, and the animation is always very smooth. I actually found the animation in the small one to be a little bit inconsistent in places. A lot of the times, probably in order to cut corners, you can definitely see a lot of reused animation. And we see this in some of the Disney films as well. I think there's a video on YouTube where it compares certain scenes where they've used exact same fully animated sequences and just changed the characters within them. For example, the boy character in this is basically Mowgli from the Jungle Book. And there's entire animated sequences, like the facial expressions. If you have like a knowledge of those films, you can almost pinpoint the scene that they've lifted it from.
But the donkey is a jackass from Pinocchio.
There's a few things. Yeah, we both noticed
and
this.
Stromboli's in it. So.
Oh, that's the end of your. That was the end of your sentence. Sorry, I thought you were going on there. Yeah, no, I noticed that as well. So the story, for anyone who doesn't know, the small one, it is actually based on a book. I think. Yeah, it's based on a 1947 book by Charles Tazwell. Not sure how you pronounce his name. And it's essentially this little boy is very enamored with this donkey. It's kind of his best friend, but it's an old donkey. It can't sort of pull its weight anymore. It can't work as efficiently. And the boy's dad says it's kind of a liability. You need to take it to the market and sell it. And it follows the boy's sort of reluctant journey to part with this donkey. He wants to find a good owner for it.
He should have got some magic beans for it.
Yeah, it's kind of like very close to Jack and the Beanstalk kind of thing. So yeah, the animation I found a little bit inconsistent because you have the sort of more classic Disney style, I guess, where you have like the boy, as I said, reused animation from Mowgli and the Sword in the Stone. You have the donkey character, which does look a lot like Pinocchio, and the Stromboli character. You do have like a very colorful Disney style song and dance number from the Three Merchants. But then there's moments of the animation where it gets really fucking mature and like dark and really foreboding, and even like the human animation style changes. For example, where he goes to the tanner, and it's a really, really fucking creepy and dark scene where it's almost like, well, it's a tanner's. It's, you know, he's skinning all the animals. You get that sense of dread from the background and the lighting. You have the shots of the crying, sad animals that are like crammed in a pen that are about to be fucking slaughtered. It's horrible. And that guy with the knife, the tanner himself, just the way he looks and everything is so drastically different from like the boy or the donkey character. And that could be intentional. You have the more sort of like, I always call them the Disney eyes, like the bright, expressive eyes of your main protagonists. And then you have the very serious, almost lifelike quality. Like, I don't actually know if it was rotoscoped, but it kind of looked like that, like the olden style of Disney. And you also have, I guess, spoiler alert for it. So this is called The Small One. Apparently in the UK, this film's called A Christmas Miracle, which I did read before watching it. Yeah, I did read that before watching the film. And yeah, I was still surprised when we got the huge biblical plot twist at the very end of the film. So I guess this is spoiler alert for the small one.
I was not surprised by the look of it. It looked biblical.
Yeah, it's set in Nazareth, isn't it? Or just outside of Nazareth. And the guy
Nazareth still a place?
Yes. Yeah, it's apparently the largest city in the northern district of Israel. So yeah,
so people still live there.
Yeah.
Interesting. Do they still take shelter in
mangers?
Mangers, that's it.
I have no idea. You're gonna have to take it up with them. Yeah. But yeah, Joseph shows up. The biblical sort of father of Jesus, not really, because that's God, but he's there. He was there from day one. He's the real deal.
He's that kind of father.
He's that kind of father, yeah. And his animation as well, very, very different, very distinct, very striking. I actually really liked the ending to this, and this is coming from someone who's not to harp on religion, because I don't want to start a war in the fucking comment section, but I'm not a believer at all.
I fucking hate religion.
Dale's just going straight in. But I really liked that twist, and I loved that little spin on the ending. I thought that was really sweet.
I loved it. I thought it was great. It was because the thing is, it's like that story was obviously done to death. Obviously, so many times. But I think it's it is a cool story. I like the story. I thought it's nice with the wise men and the thing. I think it's quite cool. You know what? I find it really weird that there are people that genuinely believe it's true and all that. But aside from that, it's a cool little story. It's like imagine I was going around proper now Hogwarts is real. Now Hogwarts is real. I'd be put in a mental asylum. Just think about that. That's all I'm saying. But to be fair, no. But I do think the story is cool, and I like the wise men characters. I like the whole follow the story. I like it. I think it is a really great story. I think it needs to be retold. Add Godzilla or something. Just put a twist on it. I think that would be cool. But the thing is, it's been told so many times, but I think it's done well. Majority of times that it's done, and this is one of them. It's done in a nice. In a really nice, wholesome way.
Yeah, wholesome is definitely the right word for it. I think right from the off, the way they establish that friendship between the boy and the donkey is really well done. It's the classic Disneyisms where, as I say, you got the big eyes and the expressiveness and just how nice this donkey is. And you want to see him go to a good home. And it is a little bit sad at the end when he has to part with him. But with the knowledge of the biblical story, you're like, donkey's going to be okay. He's going to be the most famous donkey ever. And he's going to go on to a good home. So
yeah, but donkeys don't live as long as humans.
It's meant to be wholesome. Shut the fuck up.
The donkey died after the making of this.
Oh, no. But apparently this film has two... very slight edits to it, which we probably should expect now. These edits were apparently made in 2005. So, and I think the version that we both watched is the edited version. I don't even know if you can find a copy of the original unchanged version. So the two edits are at the very end, when the camera pans up to the star above the manger. They've added more lines to the star in order to make it look less like a cross. But at that point you're going full biblical with it. Just go with it. And then the other one is well, it was probably thematic Christianity and all that, wasn't it? Of course it was. But and then the other change was the Three Merchants song. So apparently the original lyric is we never fail when we never fail when we go to make a sale. We simply cheat a little if we must. The last part of this was changed to we work a little harder if we must. And apparently
that was such a good song though.
It was a fun song, wasn't it? Yeah. It was sort of reminded me of Aladdin or something like that.
Yeah, that was my favorite song.
And apparently there hasn't been a reason given for these edits, but people guess that it's to do with sort of the Arab stereotype kind of thing. But the characters are by definition in the film, they are sort of sleazy merchants that are stealing money and exploiting people. They're not good people, and the animated short makes that quite clear. It's stereotypes be damned. The characters within this short film are not nice people. They're villainous. most people in the town, like the tanner probably isn't like an evil guy, he's just working a living, but obviously it is a pretty brutal line of work that he's in. And then you have the more what I was going to say, sort of like economic side of things. What's the word I'm looking for? Where it's all to do with the capitalist. There you go. Like the capitalist side of the town and how everything's just exploited for money. So them saying we cheat a little harder, or just we'll cheat a little if we must, that makes sense to their character. By them saying, oh, we'll work harder, we'll persevere, we'll work harder. Well, no, that makes them sound like they're in some kind of noble profession, which they're not. They're sleazy and they'll, skim off the top as much as possible.
And I bet they have like 3 teeth between them.
Yes. But apparently it's on Disney Plus. You can watch this on Disney Plus if you haven't done so already.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So yeah, Bluth got the directing gig for this one. It was a little bit of a shuffle around. It seemed like it was a really messy production of, initial ideas. And I know that most ideas start like that and they get changed around a lot in the storyboarding stages. But one of the Disney's 9 old men, Eric Larson, he was sort of like heading the training program to get all of this new talent in. And I think he was under the impression that he was going to direct it as well, the small one. And then apparently he came back after the weekend and Don Bluth was in the director's chair and they were kind of pushing him out. And apparently in reaction to the news, he just shook his head and knew that he wasn't being appreciated. He felt the old days were gone. Which is strange when you think about it, because when you look at the future Disney films that came out after that point, which would have been, like Fox and the Hound, Black Cauldron, Basil, Oliver, right after that, you're straight into the Disney Renaissance. So in many ways, like the old days were coming back because that was where Disney went from strength to strength again. So it's interesting, isn't it?
Left at the wrong time.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think he was just fucking old. That's how time works. Like,
he's a bit old now, though, isn't he?
Just a bit, yeah. Ugh. JDC says, I meant that whilst most movies, mainly live action, were produced in the cheap black and white format, most animated products, even certain regular movies like The Wizard of Oz, were Technicolor. Yeah, I do like that kind of old style Hollywood film, like the big Technicolor epics. So I think there is always that inherent nostalgia of what came before. For example, I think at the moment, and I know that Don Bluth's been working on this Dragon Lair project for fucking years now. It's been in production hell. I personally, I don't think it will see the light of day. He's making that with the intention that there's a clamor for a return to form of traditional animation, and he wants to kind of revitalize it with this movie. And I do think there is always a nostalgia for something that has come before, definitely. And I think there's kind of like a cyclical system to that where, yeah, maybe at some point we will get hand-drawn animated films back again at some point. But something has to get the ball rolling, I guess, with that.
It will be a while.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just we're not getting any, are we? It's really, really depressing. It's just, for whatever reason.
It's going to be a long time.
Too time consuming, too expensive. I don't know. Right then, I think we should move on to our next one then. I guess final thoughts on the small one. Would you recommend it?
Very. That doesn't make sense. I'd very recommend it. Yes. It's very good. I would recommend it 100%. It's a good length that it feels like a feature. It does. Like I think the pacing's great. I think the animation is great. There's not really a flaw I can find in it. It's done very, very well. I'd recommend it to anyone.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a really nice animated short. I think it helped not really knowing much going into it. I think it's the perfect length. It hits all the beats of a good story. And yeah, there's some nice music in there. It is a little bit saccharine sweet at some points with the
better
music.
Better than Encanto, isn't it? I'd much rather watch this than Encanto. It's a lot fucking shorter than Encanto as well. That's for damn sure. They should have switched timings. I'd have watched this for hours.
For 2 hours, yeah. Right, let's move on to our next one then. So now we're getting into like proper Bluth. This was his baby. This was his project. We've got Banjo the Woodpile Cat, and that background image was really difficult to find. There's not many images around for this film. This film was so strange to me because I think it was probably like it was almost certainly actually a trailer before a film on like one of my old VHSs as a kid maybe for like American Tail, perhaps, or Land Before Time. I don't even know. But I remember seeing a few short little clips from Banjo. It was like a montage. It was probably like a whole bunch of like Don Bluth stuff. And I remember seeing the image of like Banjo, like the singing and dancing in the club, with like the showgirl cats. And then there's the one where he's like really sad and it's raining. I saw a whole bunch of shots of that have just lived rent free in my mind forever.
What was the cartoon with the big fat thing that dresses as Elvis and starts singing?
The cartoon with the big fat thing that dresses as Elvis and starts singing?
Yep.
I have no idea.
And he's got a microphone and he starts singing, and there's a little Elvis next to him.
That, I think you're thinking of the Magic Sword Quest for Camelot. There's a moment where you've got a double-headed dragon that dresses as Elvis.
It. That's exactly what I'm thinking of.
Devon and Cornwall. That's what they're called.
Is that what they... Yeah. For some reason, that came into my head. Film. I think it's because you're on about, like, at the beginning of videos, and I just remember that was always there, and that's what I'm thinking of.
Damn, see, that's just there as well. That's just in my head somewhere. Wow, I got that off the big fat thing that sings Elvis shit. I don't know. Yeah, that's a good film. I think that was Universal that made that. There's some good films as well.
I think I remember it at the beginning of like my Looney Tunes videos. So
yes, probably. Yeah, that Warner Brothers. Yeah, it would have been 100%. Yeah. Disney was just fucking huge in the 90s. Everyone was trying to get some. You had 20th Century Fox that had like the Swan Princess. You had Warner Brothers trying to get in on it as well. So yeah, they were all doing it.
You had DreamWorks pretending to be Bug's Life.
No, it was the other way around. Ants came out.
I know first. It was the other way around, but I have a theory that they stole the ideas.
I think I think there was a double agent or something between those two studios whispering certain things.
And I feel like Ants was the copy because Bug's Life is amazing.
So is Ants.
Ants is great too, but Bug's Life is amazing. It's like...
They're both very different. One's a lot more mature, a lot more adult with its jokes. Bug's Life's probably more of the family movie, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like banging Ariana Grande and Baby Spice. Like, both good, but Ariana Grande has that edge. Like...
Oh, probably not. Well, she's got loads of edges now. Christ almighty, she should take your eye out with a shoulder blade. Ugh.
She can do no wrong.
Right, let's talk some Banjo the Woodpile Cat then. Had you seen this one before? You heard of this one before?
No, It's weird because when I first watched them both, I was like, they're both great. As soon as I watched, Banjo and Kazooie, I thought, this is great. But then I watched the small one, and
because you watched them the other way around, right?
Yeah, for some weird reason. I don't know why. But yeah, Banjo just felt it's not as good. I don't think. Like, I personally didn't like. Okay, it's weird to say it's not as good because it's still good. And there's a lot of great things, like when you get the burlesque. Was it like a burlesque club? Yeah,
it basically wasn't it? Yeah, like a jazz club.
Like when you get that, I think that was great. I think the costume designs were great. The voice acting's great. I think there's a lot of it that was great. But like, for instance, the music is great, but I think there's more to the small one. There's more to it. There's more layers. Whereas I think this was more just a fun kind of Oliver and Company kind of like wacky, a little bit Top Cat. You know what I mean? A little bit sort of like that kind of vibe, and that's cool and that's fine. I just think there was more to the small one, which made me go, that has the edge.
I don't know. I'm very torn because there's more of those classic Disneyisms in the small one. Of course it is, because it was made by Disney. But I really appreciate this one because this one sort of exemplifies Don Bluth's style and a lot of the storytelling elements actually in this one. Well, the animation style already from this unequivocally Don Bluth. Like, as we get further into his films, like, you'll look at this, just like the way he animates the faces, as I mentioned, the expressions. He's really good at anthropomorphic characters, like as you mentioned, like the dance club and everything, like the way the characters move. It's so fluid. The fact that this was done on such like a shoestring budget and it was made like in like a garage across 4 years is fucking incredible. And for 1979, the animation is absolutely stellar in this. It's so smooth. There's so much detail.
It is. There's a lot of great things. Like when it comes to like the rain drops in the like. I think a lot of that was just yeah. I do no. I agree. I just yeah. I the small one definitely had the edge though. It really did. And when I watched this, the first thing I thought was, "Oh, the music is amazing, and the music is great," and I absolutely loved like the intro music, everything. And I thought this started off so well that like it takes a lot for me to get captivated by things. And when that music started, I thought, okay, this is good. This is starting off very very well. But yeah, I don't know. I think it was because it's more one dimensional in a way.
I don't know. I think there's a lot of thematic elements in this and story beats that we'll see quite used quite a lot in a lot of
It's got
Bluth's
Honest
work.
John in it, isn't it?
A little, yeah, I guess so. I guess it has. But the theme of having this innocent character lost and trying to return home
Like Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah, it's a theme that's used a lot in a lot of his films. For example, there's elements of that in The Secret of Nim. It's pretty much the story of American Tail, The Land Before Time, trying to get back to the Great Valley. It's all throughout of his films, and there are some mature elements to this. And one thing that I love about Don Bluth's films, and I've already kind of mentioned that this was present in the small one. It's true with this one as well. There's a real sense of danger and peril for the characters as well. In the small one, you have like the very shady, like the Tanner character and the townsfolk and whatnot. It feels very uneasy. It feels very dark. And I don't think that Don Bluth pulls back on those scarier elements to it, because I honestly think that's part of all good kids all the good like kids films that I can remember growing up with. Looking back, there are some terrifying moments in there, and I think deep down, even though we were like scared or even like traumatized by them as a kid, we still go back and talk about things from Never-Ending Story or whatever film it happens to be, Return to Oz, that are like truly terrifying. I think secretly we kind of liked that element of danger in there. And I think Bluth had the ideology of, as long as there's a happy ending at the very end of the film, kids can handle, whatever you throw at them, basically. And he had that ideology with The Land Before Time. And I'm so grateful that he had that idea, because I feel like so much of his films have a lot of weight to them. And in this room, for example, like where the dogs attack, they're not cartoon dogs. They feel like ravenous, like actual fucking street dogs chasing you down, and it's scary.
Yeah, and like they foam at the mouth, don't they?
That's what I mean. Like the way that he animates, you do have like the more cartoony, like cat characters, like the ones in the background that we can see, like Crazy Legs and Banjo himself. But then when the tension ramps up, if you look at all of his films, like the villains or scary characters, they are really, really scary. Sharptooth in The Land Before Time, for example, absolutely terrifying. Acts exactly like a fucking T-Rex, and that's what I'm. And then when we get to the next film, Secret of Nim, there's sort of a quote unquote villainous cat character in that called Dragon, who looks terrifying and acts like a cat would from like a mice perspective. And I love that he brings that across to it. They still feel cartoony. They still feel very expressive, but they still retain all of their animal and predatory-like qualities to them. So, yeah. I think it's lost in a lot of kids' films now. I feel like they've lost their edge a little bit. They've lost a little bit of the bite.
In kids' films today, as we realised when we did Disney. There's a lot that just lost. There's less emotion.
Yeah.
There's a formula. It's more of a just kind of this works, that do this, and there's no risks, and that is a sad time.
Well, this was kind of the thing that prompted Don Bluth and a bunch of the animators to leave. There was basically a mass walkout, and Bluth was leading the charge, and a lot of the loyal animators to him who, I get the impression they genuinely believed in what they were doing. Like as animators themselves, they wanted to really push the boundaries and the artistic merits of animation. And I think they felt like they were being not exploited, but like not enough care was given to it. So it was Bluth, Gary Goldman. I have to be very careful how I say that because I keep wanting to say Gary Oldman. Not the same. Gary Goldman. And a bunch of other animators all kind of walked out. And because they felt that Disney, this is a quote here, were attempting to reduce the cost of films without paying attention to any artistic values.
That's what they're doing now, though, isn't it?
Well, exactly. That's what I mean. So it's what's more efficient? Do we care about the product? No, I'll get another sequel out there. Who cares? It's going to make money.
Which was the first CGI Chicken Little?
Chicken Little, yeah. Oh, someone's
Didn't
going
that
to
show
say
you
Disney's
how it
dinosaur.
went downhill? That doesn't
Yeah.
count.
Yeah.
That
Chicken
doesn't
Little.
count. That wasn't a movie.
Yeah, Chicken Little was the first. So he resigned from Disney. Apparently, this was a side project that he was working on. He did want to produce a short film based on the Pied Piper of Hamelin, but he felt that was a little bit too large of a production. So this project he was kind of doing in all of his off hours, like on weekends and after working a full day. Like he'd get like a bunch of the animators over and they'd keep like chipping away at this. And then he resigned from Disney. This was during the production of Fox and the Hound. He did animate some segments in the Fox and the Hound, a lot on the I forgot the name of the old lady who takes Todd in, but he did a lot of animation work on her, and I think on some of the cows as well. That scene where she's like milking the cows and Todd kicks the bucket over or whatever. And it was 17 other animators went with him, and they all began work on what we'll talk about next week, The Secret of Nim. And this walkout actually caused the Fox and the Hound to be delayed by a year, I believe. So yeah, it was quite.
Do you ever see the Fox and the Hound as a prequel to what's that thing with the dog and the aeroplane?
Again, I'm gonna get this. What's it called? Look up, look down, look all around, and the lady
Come outside. Do you ever see that as a sequel? Because the old lady, she reminds me of her, and that's the Hound, but the fox is dead.
I think you mentioned that on our Fox and the Hound review. Now you come to mention that. I've never put those two and two together. No, I can't say I have, but
well, now yeah.
JDC says, for Fantasia, whilst most of us do appreciate its technical ambition, very few of us feel that it would have succeeded if the stories of certain segments would relate to each other like a flowing plot.
This is the thing. I love the fact that it doesn't all stick together. I really, really do. Because it's one of those where it doesn't need to, and you can kind of go in anywhere. But I do remember with Fantasia as well. I don't remember when it was. It was obviously quite a while ago when I was a kid, but I wasn't like a little kid. But I remember being, I don't know, youngish. Maybe a teenager. Anyway, but the point is, I remember being younger. And Chernobog at the end of Fantasia, I always thought that it was like the
antagonist.
Apprentice, sorry. Yeah. Sorcerer's Apprentice was like Mickey did all that stuff, made all the magic and all that sort of stuff, and then Chernobog appeared because all the magic he made, he accidentally gave birth to this dark creature.
Right.
And that's how I always thought of it. And then when I watched it again later on, I was like, oh, they're not connected. But in my mind, they're always connected, like Mickey brought Chernobog about by mistake.
Is there a way that we can sort of connect every single segment in some way in our minds, like come up with some bullshit reason for connecting them?
In my mind, yeah, it works.
I feel like the last two, because you have Night on Bald Mountain with the Chernobog section, and then that goes straight into Ave Maria, doesn't it? And that sort of flows directly to it. But I really like that, although they're completely separate pieces of music. I love that you have sort of like the dark, satanic
and then
side of things, and then as soon as Dawn comes out, you have the angelic, heavenly, biblical side. I think that's wonderfully offset with it. But no, I like the individual segments. I think that's the whole point.
You know how like you have Dawn and Dusk? How come people call their kid Dawn, but no one calls their kid Dusk?
I mean, someone probably has.
Somewhere.
This is a really good bit of trivia, actually. So yeah, JDC said Quest for Camelot was actually produced by Warner Brothers. Yeah, we mentioned that. And he says, it's a little humorous that while you were trying to say the name Gary Goldman, it does almost sound too much like Gary Oldman, the guy who voiced Ruba, the main antagonist of Quest for Camelot. Yeah, he did.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
And he gets the fucking Excalibur sword fused to his arm. He's awesome.
That's an interesting link we never thought we would make today.
We always keep doing that, don't we? We always find these little coincidences that we don't plan. We don't plan any of this shit. We're just like, yeah, whatever. And it just seems to work out.
I know, like it'll be the Teen Wolf anniversary or some weird thing that we just didn't.
I'm going to have a look, actually.
How mad would that be? That would actually be great. I would love it.
It was 1985, so it's coming up to it.
It's been 40 years.
Let me
March
see.
the 10th, 1985.
Could you imagine if it actually was? Let's.
Great.
Oh no, God! It's August 23rd. We're fine. We're fine for a while.
It's Michael J. Fox again, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's something.
That's good movie.
There's going to be a link. Maybe Michael J. Fox will die today or something.
No, you need to shut up. Hell no. So what I like about this as well is that I mentioned that the animation in this is very much more Bluth style, but apparently it was also based on a lot of his real life experiences. He grew up on a farm, and apparently his family cat, who lived in a woodpile, disappeared and returned a few weeks later. So that was kind of one of the main base of the ideas of this. There are a lot of elements to this when you watch it, a lot of similarities to Disney films that have gone by and Disney films that will weirdly come out later. The main one for me was Aristocats.
The main one for me was Oliver and Company.
Yeah, a lot of that when he gets to the city and it's raining and the dogs are chasing him and he's sort of feeling sorry for himself. You almost can hear that Huey Lewis and the News song. No, it's always once upon a time in New York. It's like that, very similar to that, which is weird because that came out obviously years later from when this was made. So I think it did actually. Let me check. Oliver.
Yeah, it was. But that's the thing. It's
that was 1988. That was like almost a decade after this.
But I remember kind of feeling the same about Oliver and Company in the sense of it being just as one-dimensional in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so yeah, very similar.
For me, there was a lot of Aristocats in there, especially at the beginning. You have Banjo's siblings and you have the sisters. And I even think the color scheme, there was like a white one, a black one, and then he's like the tabby one, right? Like the orange one. And it was very much like Marie, Berlioz, and Toulouse from the Aristocats. The way they were kind of like the sibling rivalry and the squabbling at the beginning was very much like that. The dad kind of looks like Thomas O'Malley. And then when he does get to the city, there's a more of a blatant Aristocats link actually between these two films, and that's the character of Crazy Legs, who's voiced by Scatman Crothers, who voices Scat Cat in the Aristocats. So it's very weird how he's voiced two animated cat characters. I don't know how many other actors will have that on their resume, but Scatman Crothers has that, I guess. The club itself with like the showgirls and the dancing girls, it's very much like everybody wants to be a cat. There's even sort of there's a bit in that song, I think, where the color scheme goes like crazy and it's like yellows and pinks and just really fiber optic colors.
Well, that reminded me as well of like Jessica Rabbit.
Yes, yeah.
But it was that whole showgirl kind of thing, is it? Like that whole Marilyn Monroe, Betty Boop.
Kind of like a noir feel to it, isn't it?
Yeah,
the femme fatale sort of thing,
which I really like. I do love that feel.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I love the way that they were animated as well, which sounds like really like pervy and crazy. But I just mean Bluth animates just they feel so human. Like the skin was changed, like they're cats, but they just the way that they're animated, the voices as well, the expressions, it feels so human. So yeah, I really like those characters to it. What other Disney films that it remind me of? Banjo, just the look of Banjo himself, like when he was in like the tin can and he was crying and he felt very sorry for himself. It actually looked like the little girl. Is it Penny? I think I said Jenny earlier. Penny from The Rescuers. And when she's like really sad and like teary, it honestly looks like they've just taken that character model and just turned her into a cat.
And it looked like with the fishbowl. Pinocchio.
Cleo from Pinocchio, yeah.
Yeah, that I was reminded of that as well. I was like, oh look, it's Pinocchio.
I just think it's a really sweet film, to be honest. It's the perfect length. It's like 26 minutes or something like that.
It is the perfect length. It's not as sweet as the small one, though, I don't think. I do still prefer the small one.
Yeah. I really like
this together because I can't do this without comparing them and going, but that one was better.
Yeah. So apparently this was originally considered to be a feature. It originally included more of a fleshed out villain. Apparently it was going to be a scarred cigar smoking cat named Rocco. and that character will have similarities to some of the other villains that we'll see in this filmography. The villain from An American Tail, the villain from All Dogs Go to Heaven as well, are very much based on this original idea.
I've seen that countless times too.
Or what, All Dogs Go to Heaven?
Yeah.
I had it on video. I remember there being sequels to that as well. I think I had the sequel. I think it was like a Christmas sequel. I think
It's one of them. Like Anastasia. I've seen it a lot, and I'm going to go back and watch it and go, yay. But Anastasia, I watched a lot because, like I say, I had an ex-girlfriend who was obsessed with it. But All Dogs Go to Heaven, I watched as a kid because it was just constantly on TV, and I don't know why, but I watched it a lot.
I have seen it before, but I really don't remember much about it. So that will be like watching that film for the first time, which I'm really excited for, actually.
It's about a pack of dogs.
They probably go to heaven, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm guessing.
Actually, they go to a strip club and they call it heaven.
They basically do in this film, don't they? Banjo the Woodpile Cat.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's really interesting that with a lot of these Don Bluth films, they actually kind of found, like, I was going to say Crazy Legs. That's the name of the character from this film.
Which sounds like a strip club.
It does. It does. On the direct-to-video sequels, crazy successful. I mean, American Tail had 3 sequels, one of which was theatrical, which we might talk about at some point. And then 2 other direct-to-video ones. Land Before Time had like 13 or 14 fucking sequels. The Secret of Nim had a sequel as well, which I completely forgot about. All Dogs Go to Heaven did.
And yet, Who Framed Roger Rabbit hasn't?
We thank God for that, because it's...
No, I know. I'm happy it hasn't, but it's weird. All these got one, and Who Framed Roger Rabbit didn't.
Yeah.
Like, if it was to have one, it should have had one like a year later or 2 years later.
Mm-hmm.
Not now.
But yeah,
now
so
he would be like secretly a woman, and it's not some like Bugs Bunny thing. It's him literally.
Yes,
yeah.
I mean, Bugs Bunny's been doing that shit since like the original cartoon, and it was fine. But now we'd make a deal of it. Now
Do you know what though? I saw a Bugs Bunny cartoon the other day, and Lola showed up at his house, and Bugs was obviously dressed as a woman, and she was like, "Who's that woman?" She was like, "Who was the ugly woman leaving your house?" And he was just like, "Right, first of all, she weren't ugly, she was hot, and second of all, that was me." I was like, "This is why we like Bugs Bunny."
But we got another comment here. JDC says Philip and Aurora, especially the former, was strangely mute in the third act of Sleeping Beauty, but I feel that it should have made them. But I feel that it should have made them sing "Once Upon a Dream" once more along with the chorus. Interesting. Yeah, well, I don't know, because you have it's a very similar ending to what would eventually be Beauty and the Beast, isn't it? Where you have the chorus just closing everything out as you just watch them dance. I feel that's how Cinderella ended as well, if I remember correctly.
Do you know what I liked about Sleeping Beauty? Sleeping Beauty felt like your unconventional princess film in the sense that it's more about the fairies. There was a lot of things that happened that didn't feel like it didn't feel, which I thought was great. So yeah.
But apparently the tone of this film, as I mentioned, it was going to be a feature with like a villain in there, but the tone of it was going to be a lot darker as well. And there was going to be a big climactic battle between Crazy Legs and this villain Rocco, which was going to be inspired by the Jungle Book ending with Shere Khan and Baloo. But it was found that padding the film and adding darker elements did not strengthen the storyline, so the filmmakers kept the film as a short, which I think was absolutely the correct decision. And just them having that notion that, is this stuff really servicing the film? Do we need all this in there to tell this story? And quite evidently it didn't, because I think the story functions perfectly fine as it is, and it's a really sweet little film. When I was watching it, there was one bit that happened which really confused me, and I didn't really understand the link to it, but now I do have to, after reading this. Apparently it was originally conceived as, or it was at least considered to be at some point, to be made into a Christmas special, which is why during the song and dance number with Crazy Legs, he comes walking out in like a full Santa outfit. Do you remember that?
I did. I do remember that. Yeah, I did remember sitting there, like, just being like, "Is this a Christmas movie?" Like, I did think that at one point. So,
and apparently the animation itself would have gone through more of a Christmas theme. Don Bluth apparently said, quote, "We forced Christmas into it and it didn't work." but still within the film itself, you have that Santa moment. You have some scenes of like snow and decorations and whatnot. So, yeah, very strange. This was pitched to Disney as well at one point, but it was pitched to the then studio head Ron Miller, who turned it down. So I do wonder, like, that this could have potentially have been a Disney feature at some point, which maybe they even borrowed ideas for when they did
I
Oliver
don't
and
think it would have
Company.
worked as a feature. I think it would have been too similar to. Then again, if it had been a feature, would Oliver and Company or whatever have made?
Mm.
That's the other thing to think. Like, but I don't think it would have been. Yeah, I think it's the way it should be.
Yeah. There's been talks of a possible sequel as well, apparently. But Don Bluth has said that apparently it's going to be called Banjo Meets the King of the Goblins, which is a very strange title to go for. I'm not sure how they'd work that in. But Bluth has stated that so far he just wishes to leave the film behind, which I think is the right decision.
Good.
Yeah. No, I really like this one. I think there's not a whole lot going on. It's a very, very simple premise, but I think that Banjo as a character is very sweet. It's just that, the innocent protagonist who you want to see get home, and it's just really wholesome. Like halfway through, I'm just like, yeah, Banjo, you grab a hold of that truck and you get yourself home. And it's a nice. Actually, do you remember the scene where the father goes to beat him at the beginning? He's like,
Yeah.
Banjo, go and get that thing. Like, I'm going to hit you with it. I was, oh my God. Oh, it's 1979. We can get away with so much now.
We're allowed to hit people in 1979.
Yeah. So I'm really torn because I hadn't seen either of these short films. I enjoyed both of them immensely. To me, I felt like the animation was a lot stronger in Banjo, and it's a lot more consistent with what Bluth's style is. There's a lot of story elements which will be used time and time again throughout his works. There's a lot of commonality, a lot of common themes between them. And yeah, I think just purely for the fact that it was this passion project that took him so many years to make, and that it was sort of fronted by all of these really loyal animators that left Disney and had a vision. And, this was the first production of Don Bluth Productions, which would later be changed to Sullivan Bluth Studios once it was, I think it was a collaboration or it was bought out. I think I appreciate Banjo more. But I do really like both of them. But I know that you prefer the short one, right? Yeah. Was it just the story? Did you feel like it was just a bit more concise, a little bit stronger?
I think the small one was more. They had more layers. Like I say, I think it had more to it. Whereas this was more one-dimensional. It sounds weird to say one-dimensional because that's always an insult, and I don't want to insult it. But it was sort of like there was one thing going on, and it was more. I think the depth and the any sort of layers and differences, it was from the music, and that's great. But the small one had great music, and there was emotion, there was this and there was that, and things that this one just didn't capture, which it's not a bad thing, because at the end of the day, this one didn't need to capture those kind of things. I didn't feel like there's anything missing. I just feel that I preferred my time watching the small one.
Yeah. That's fair enough. Well, both of these are available on YouTube. Like, if you haven't seen them and you're curious to check them out, you can. I think you can actually buy Banjo the Woodpile Cat on DVD. I think I saw it on Amazon. I think it was like £17 or something like that. So I think it's actually quite hard to track down. The small one, I don't think that's been released. Maybe in some like kind of Disney animated short compilation, but it is on streaming now anyway. We're products of the modern world.
That's like what, 50p a minute?
Something like that. Yeah, probably. It's expensive.
Like yeah. No, it's more than 50p a minute. Fuck. But yeah.
Well, next week I'm really looking forward to talking about this one. I have actually watched this film already. The other evening, I just really wanted to watch a movie, and I was really eager to get into some Don Bluth stuff. So I'll probably actually end up watching this one again before we talk about it, because I think it's incredible. Considered by most to be his magnum opus right out of the gate. I'd probably give that to Land Before Time, probably from nostalgia reasons. We're talking about the 1982 feature, The Secret of Nim, which, if you haven't seen, you're in for a treat because it's wonderful.
It's kind of it's a shame because you don't have the DVD covers that you hold up.
I actually do have the DVD of this one. I need to track it down though, so I will find it out for next week and I will hold it up. But I do have it somewhere.
But do you have it for what's the one after it?
That'd be an American Tail. I think I need to. I've got that on video. I think I need to buy that.
So you can hold up the video.
Time. Yeah. Oh, hang on. What's this one? Oh, that's an American Tail 3. That's the direct-to-video one. Oh, it was Universal that did the sequels. There you go. I got Land Before Time ready for when we do that. Oh God, that's like my childhood right there. It's really emotional. But yeah, Secret of Nim is going to be our next one, and it's just look at the poster. Even the poster's just a work of art. Just everything, the music. I can't wait to talk about this one. Have you seen Secret of Nim before?
I don't know. I don't know if I have.
You are in for a treat. It's bloody wonderful. But anyway, that will do it for our video today. I think it was probably a good call combining both of these into one video because I was considering doing separate ones. But yeah, we're coming up to an hour. That's usually how long we go for on these. Be interested to hear from everyone else. Let me know your thoughts on the small one and Banjo the Woodpile Cat. As I say, we're beginning our Don Bluth film retrospective now. We're going to be doing this for a lot of weeks. There's some absolute gems in there, and I can't wait to talk about them. And I want to hear from you guys as well, sharing your memories on his films, your favorite ones that you're looking forward to. So please do consider subscribing to the channel for more reviews from us. There's discussions and live streams on a whole bunch of other stuff as well. Yeah, really looking forward to getting into this one as we take on a new animation giant, moving away from Disney now and focusing on Don Bluth. This has been great. I just want to say a big thank you to everyone that's tuned in tonight or dropped a comment. We really appreciate you guys. And we'll be back next Monday at 8 p.m. talking about some Secret of Nim.